Okay, we're here, Poor Magazine, Pacific Northwest. We're here just having a nice quiet evening with Talauna Reed and Lennée Reid
Yes.
on so-called Olympia and Squaxin and Nisqually and Chehalis traditional territories, unceded territories. And we just want to, have you each introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about who you are and
I can go first. My name is Talauna Reed, and although Lennée and I have the same last name, it's spelled differently. We may be related, but we don't know. In the meantime, we just care for one another and work with one another. So I'm a poverty scholar. I'm a single mother, and I live here in Olympia. And I'm an activist and organizer in the community. Most of the social justice work I do is surrounding police brutality and accountability, and anti-racist work. So that's that.
Yes. That's how I met Talauna, was through our shared activism fighting for our rights here in Olympia. My name is Lennée Reid, and I am a multimedia artist and poverty scholar, single mother. I'm an artist. I worked on a art project recently with Talauna called Unity Hands, and that was how we became closer recently. So, yeah.
amazing, yeah. And both of you've both lived here for quite a while. You're both poverty scholars, both single mamas, both living in this occupied territory. What has your experiences been like as poverty scholars, as Black women throughout your life with housing and navigating your raising children, raising your families, and doing these projects and all the things that you do? What has that been like?
You want to go first? I mean, I'm happy to share. Yes, I am a single mother, and here in Olympia, the housing market is bad and has been for a while. But it is, of course, worse for Black and brown folks. I'm a renter. I've never owned a home, and just raising kids and trying to secure housing has been problematic. I've been unhoused before, not in Olympia, but on the brink of being unhoused because of inflated rents and whatnot. As far as trying to acquire housing, it's nearly impossible for a lot of people because there is no affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
But my personal story, I lost my home in 2019, and I ended up living on a friend's boat for 2 years because I couldn't find it because I was having such a hard time finding a rental. There's a lot of discrimination, and applying for I'm employed, but that didn't matter. Just applying and getting charged excess application fees, getting charged application fees illegally. It's just been a process, and I'm currently housed and have been in my place for a couple of years now. But in order to do so, I have a white co-signer, and I earn more money than they earn, and my credit is actually better than theirs. But I couldn't find a place to rent, so another friend that I organized with said, "Hey, let's try something different. Let's see if I don't co-sign, if I don't apply with you. Let's see what your experience will be like." And the first place I applied, I got, and that tells you how the housing market, how housing has been for me.
Yeah, I've been looking for housing for a long time. Right now we're in the RV that we had a fundraiser for, but I have had a hard time finding somewhere that is as inclusive of a community.
Let's see.
Excuse me, you'll have to edit that. It's as exclusive as a community, as they say. So it's been really hard finding somewhere I could afford. I'm disabled. I have multiple disabilities, physical and mental, and so it's difficult trying to find somewhere that works with those. I'm really good at the things that I can do, like art and gardening and healing. I have a degree in massage, and so finding the right healing place has been difficult. And the places say that's what they're about, so it's been hard.
And then if I can add this part, being in a place now, it may seem, secure, but it's not, because again, there are uncapped rent. There are no limitations on rent increases in Washington State. So personally, my landlord has raised the rent twice in the last 6 months. And so they haven't done that much. They haven't done any more maintenance. They haven't done any, there have been no more amenities. And, I feel like it's that they're doing that in a discriminatory way too. But $300 over 6 months is very minimal compared to some folks I know who have gone up $1,200.
Yeah, the amount of rent increase is ridiculous. The waiting list to get on anywhere is outrageous. The amount of rent you need is more than what people make. It's just compounding problems.
And you are on disability, so you are on a fixed income, which, most people, if people don't know, disability in this country has been well below the cost of living in most states for quite a long time. And then even in Talauna, even you as employed full time, I know for a fact that your income is not going up at the rate that your rent is going
right.
up.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, and like you both mentioned, like the discrimination in the housing market, both in places where you have an application as well as places where you know someone, even somebody that's your friend. There's an added layer here to this poverty scholarship of being women of color in a predominantly white community and in a community where people don't necessarily are not necessarily thinking about the impacts of anti-Black racism on someone who is trying to find housing.
People don't even see their bigotry and discrimination. They just refuse to even see it and think it's something else, and it's not.
Or they attribute it to our activism, or because we are both vocal leaders in the community. It's a trickle. That is a trickle down effect rather than economic. That it spreads, and people just, it's discrimination, or an excuse to be bigoted, basically.
And not respect the work we've been doing for years. We've both been marching and organizing for a very long time. I've been an artist and organizer for years and years.
And they benefit from it. I mean, they call us to speak and to talk about disparities in the housing market and all these things.
Or to entertain them. They don't care if we're safely housed or have adequate gas to get there. People really don't see the deeper layers because it doesn't affect them.
And so you two have a kind of joining forces at this point. You both have radical dream for self-determination. Do you want to speak on that, and what is inspiring that, and what are some of the visions that you have for what that can look like?
I'll let Lennée start, because actually I support and of course believe in it, but it was actually Lennée's vision.
So I have been a nationally toured poet and spoken word artist, author for years, and I've been to many different communities that are pretty exclusive and inaccessible to queer people, people of color, people that are low income, that need these type of healing environments for camping, for housing, for events and things like that, for growing food, for all of those things that is a model that's been done, but I think in a capitalistic mindset. I think if we have a more anti-racist, decolonial, mutual aid type angle for housing and events and a center, that we could have a beautiful healing arts center and farm and then replicate that model for more people that are poverty scholars and housed to make housing accessible. On SSI, I'm a single mother, so I do get some additional assistance, but people on SSI get under $900 a month. And so where can you get housing that's $300 a month to park your RV? I mean, there needs to be places that are accessible, and I think that we can figure out a model for that that isn't based solely on profits.
And all of what Lennée said, and what I feel like I can bring to making this vision happen for the community, because that's what it's about. I mean, first we need stable and secure housing, especially to continue the work that we do.
Yeah.
But I have a degree in organizational management, and I work in homeless services. So I have a passion for getting folks housed and coming up with solutions. There are solutions to homelessness. There are.
Yeah.
Whether or not the local government wants to do anything about it is another thing. So, but I think that putting it, the experience I have and just working with people from that specific demographic, and then incorporating the art aspect and folks it being self-sustaining. I'm all for it 100%, and I just think that again the biggest part of it is us becoming gaining housing security and then sharing that with the community.
It would solve a problem that we see and that we both have if we can have different centers that have core members that are paid a really good rate, and we have accessible housing there that we can show people how it's done. I think we don't have enough places.
There will be employment opportunities. There will be opportunities for just a healing center. So many things that people need. I mean, people have experienced a lot of trauma just in the past 2.5 years with COVID, and then our housing crisis, especially in Washington State. I mean, people need to heal. I mean, it'll be opportunity for housing, short-term, long-term, and supportive housing. So when folks are there, they're going to get support from the people that are there, who with that lived experience, but the ability to teach them things to.
Yeah, my degree is in massage therapy and Reiki. I've been organizing around paganism and intercultural events for a long time, and so there's a lot of things we can do with arts and healing with different cultures and people there, and I think it would be beautiful to have an event center to do that, and that it could house and employ myself, Talauna, and other people. We can replicate it, and it'd be great. I think it's a shame there are so many of these places that are inaccessible to people and that are needed. Yeah, so I think it's time for us to team up and start at it. So we started a fundraiser, and we've been looking at some properties and talking about different funding avenues, and just ready to go forward and start from there.
Yeah, beautiful. This is beautiful. I'm really grateful that you are talking about healing, and having your basic needs met is a fundamental part of healing, but also the work that you're talking about, this work that is not acknowledged in this culture, that is part of how we as poverty scholars and poor folks and people who are working class, people who have been homeless, it's not as simple necessarily as just putting somebody in a house and then your problems are solved.
Exactly.
And so I really just want to.
That's why we need
that,
intentional communities that are actually inclusive and functional and that are productive and produce income, that have resources there that are making opportunities for a community.
To me, this is. I'm sorry.
Instead of what we've been doing. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, to me, this is another method of recovery. Just like, you have, we talk about harm reduction, we talk about trauma-informed care. This is another, model of recovery, in my opinion. Adding the multicultural spiritual aspect to it is, we are different culturally anyway, just based upon our race, right? But when you add all these other factors, all these other gifts to it, it's another model of recovery. It's another way for people to heal, another way for people to transform, another way for people to survive and become part of the community that they live in. And right now, like I said, I work in an institution where, where harm reduction and trauma-informed care are the models of recovery, and I appreciate them. I respect those models, but we need more because that's not working for everybody, and people are still unhoused. I still have housing insecurity, and I work in homeless services. Lennée is one of the.
I've been trying to find somewhere better for a very long time.
For a long time.
That's healthier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for bringing. I just feel humbled to get to be here interviewing both of you. I know just the way that you move in this community and the things that you've done, that this is coming forth from a long history
Yeah,
of. Like,
we really
care.
want to do the things that we both do in a bigger way, and I
Mhm.
think the way to do that is land and growing food and providing support for
We need
community
space.
and jobs. The whole community does. The community needs a place to do that. That's inclusive and tolerant. And if we've been having a hard time finding it, just think of the people that aren't connected and hearted like we are, ready to do it.
Right. Right.
You got to be bold and ready to move mountains, and we're ready to do that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.